Welcome back to The Explainer. So today, we're unpacking what is easily one of the most drastic, rapid, and controversial national transformations in modern history. We're looking at El Salvador. Just a few years ago, this nation was internationally known as the literal murder capital of the world. But today, it's aggressively rebranding itself as the safest country in all of Latin America. So how exactly does a nation pull off that kind of extreme turnaround almost overnight? Well, it takes a highly secure megaprison, a total suspension of constitutional rights, and a massive societal shift. To really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this change, consider this. At its absolute peak back in 2015, El Salvador suffered a staggering 104 homicides per 100,000 people. Fast forward to the end of 2023, and that number literally plummeted to just 2.4. I mean, that is an undeniable, historic drop in violence. But this piece was violently and systematically achieved, and it's all centered around one highly guarded piece of infrastructure. Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to CECOT, the Terrorism Containment Center. It's the world's largest prison by capacity, custom designed to hold 40,000 inmates. And the architecture alone is just overwhelming. We're talking about 410 acres of completely isolated land, protected by a small army of soldiers. It's surrounded by concrete walls that are 9 meters high, and those are topped with 3-meter electric fences pumping out 15,000 volts. Inside, you've got 850 cameras monitoring literally everything 24/7. Oh, and here's a crazy detail. The ground between the fences is actually covered in loose pebbles. So if an inmate somehow makes it outside, their footsteps will naturally crunch and echo. It acts like a giant low-tech alarm system. When an inmate actually arrives here, it is truly the point of no return. The whole intake process is engineered to completely erase their connection to the outside world. First up, they pass through deep X-ray body scanners. See, before this tech, gang members used to swallow micro SD cards or microchips just to smuggle hit orders inside. Not anymore. Next, they're stripped of all personal belongings and identity. They're issued a mandatory thin white uniform, and their heads are completely shaved. From that moment on, family visits, strictly forbidden. Now, life inside the cell modules is harsh, monotonous, and incredibly cramped. These cells hold anywhere from 80 to 150 inmates at a time, leaving each person with maybe 2.5 square meters of personal space. Think about that. There are only 2 toilets and a single blue barrel of drinking water for the entire cell. And to prevent fires during potential riots, mattresses are totally banned, so inmates sleep directly on cold 4-level metal bunks. As for the food, it's strictly rice, beans, and pasta, which they have to eat with their hands. Absolutely zero meat or chicken is allowed in. And if an inmate breaks the rules in there, things get substantially worse. They get moved to the isolation cell. This room is pitch black, featuring nothing but a concrete slab for a bed. The absolute only indication of the outside world is a single tiny hole up near the ceiling that gives them just a sliver of fresh air and light. Inmates can be thrown in this sensory deprivation environment for up to 15 days, completely losing all concept of time. Section 2. Origins of the Chaos. How the world's most dangerous gangs took over a nation. Let's move to and see how this builds, because this is a tragic cycle of cause and effect spanning decades. Back in the 1980s, extreme inequality sparked a brutal civil war in El Salvador, which left thousands of children orphaned. Fast forward to the 90s, and many of these youths fled to Los Angeles to escape the violence, only to face heavy abuse from local American street gangs once they arrived. So, to protect themselves, they formed their own groups, MS-13 and Barrio 18. Recognizing the threat, the U.S. began mass deportations in the 2000s, shipping these now highly organized, hardened gang members back to a fragile El Salvador. And by the 2010s, these gangs effectively seized full territorial control of the country. So, the crucial thing to understand here is that these gangs didn't just commit random acts of violence. They created a highly structured extortion economy. In some neighborhoods, MS-13 and Barrio 18 were extracting an estimated $60,000 to $70,000 every single month from local businesses and residents. They basically operated as a shadow government. They dictated where people could walk, who they could talk to, and ultimately decided who lived or died, all based on these invisible territorial borders. And the terror of these gangs was worn directly on their skin. Their tattoos were basically a visual resume of violence. Take teardrop tattoos on the face, for example. Those signify civilian lives taken. 3 teardrops? That means the killer has taken so many lives, they've literally lost count. On the other hand, you have clown faces or masks, representing the phrase, "laugh now, cry later." But within the gang hierarchy itself, it specifically means that member has killed multiple police officers, which earn them immense respect. The ink also laid out the operational infrastructure of the gangs. A spiderweb tattoo, that indicates the member works in gang expansion and recruiting, pulling new people into the web. Meanwhile, the barbed wire tattoo is incredibly dark. It signifies that the gang member specifically specializes in the kidnapping and enslavement of non-members. To really understand the mindset behind these tattoos, listen to this quote from a 41-year-old MS-13 leader who goes by the nickname Psycho. He joined the streets at just 11 years old, and he said, "I needed a father figure. I did what I had to do right here." He estimates he's personally responsible for more than 50 victims. It's just a chilling reminder of how poverty and broken homes created an entire generation of cold-blooded killers who felt completely justified in their brutality. Section 3. The State of Emergency. President Bukele's unprecedented crackdown. Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer scale of the crackdown. It is absolutely staggering. Under President Nayib Bukele, the government initiated a massive sweep, arresting over 75,000 suspected gang members in just 16 months. To put that into perspective for you, that is roughly 2% of the country's entire adult population just swept off the streets and placed behind bars. But it wasn't just a physical sweep, it was a total cultural erasure of the gangs. Following the state of emergency declared in March 2022, the government totally changed the rules. Having a gang tattoo legally became immediate grounds for arrest. But they didn't even stop with the living. The government actively hunted down the legacy of these gangs, sending out crews into cemeteries to literally smash MS-13 gravestones and painting over all the territorial gang graffiti that once choked the local neighborhoods. But of course, this extreme methodology raises a really profound and heavily debated question. At what cost does this peace come? To understand the full picture, we really have to look at the dual outcomes of this state of emergency. Section 4. The Price of Peace. Analyzing the severe collateral damage of the state of emergency. Human rights organizations have flagged a deeply concerning reality here. Leaked documents revealed that police stations were actually operating on a strict daily quota system. Stations in San Salvador and Soyapango were allegedly pressured to arrest 40 people every single day. And when police are mandated to arrest at all costs just to hit some arbitrary numbers, the inevitable collateral damage is sweeping up completely innocent civilians. Because behind all those data points are shattered families. Take Mary Bell, a mother who stands outside the prison gates every single night, just waiting for news. Her son was arrested entirely without evidence while he was just heading to work. She says, "My son was taken just to make up numbers. He had just graduated in English." And because of the state of emergency's strict no-contact policies, thousands of families just like hers are left entirely in the dark. They can't speak to their children or even verify if they're still alive. And this brilliantly illustrates the intense duality of the situation. While human rights groups sound the alarm, the government points directly to these undeniably successful metrics. The homicide rate crashed from 104 in 2015 down to 7.8 when the state of emergency started in 2022, and settled at an incredible 2.4 in 2023. For the millions of Salvadorans who spent decades dodging bullets on their way to school or paying extortion fees just to survive, the streets are definitively safely theirs again. And the government is super eager to show off this newfound peace to the world. They recently invested $100 million to host the Miss Universe pageant. For President Bukele, broadcasting the event to 500 million global viewers wasn't just about a beauty contest. It was a deliberate, highly produced victory lap. It was their chance to declare El Salvador's rebirth on a global stage, painting it as an inviting, safe destination for tourism and business. So we're ultimately left looking at a really stark, modern dichotomy. On one hand, the everyday reality for the vast majority of El Salvador is miraculous. Children are playing outside, the extortion economy is dead, and there is genuine, tangible peace in the streets. But on the other hand, this was achieved by suspending constitutional rights, imprisoning thousands of people without due process, and leaving completely innocent families pleading for answers outside concrete walls. Which leaves us with a heavy, deeply uncomfortable question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. When a nation is entirely held hostage by violence, is total safety worth the surrender of absolute human rights? And is this a permanent solution or just a temporary fix? Think about it. Thanks for tuning in, and keep questioning the data.